Hello.
Hello.
You alright?
I'm very well.
Tim and I met because Tim was my conducting teacher at Guildhall. And you're a really good teacher. You're a tough teacher though.
I should hope so too. What do you want? An easy ride on? No.
It was not an easy ride. I remember turning up. I can't remember which piece it was. But I remember no one had kind of looked up the background of the piece. And I remember you were just like, shots fired. It was so funny. It was legendary, but it was a good class. It was really good.
Well, it's interesting because that class is open to anyone. Obviously, you audition to get on it, and so everybody who's on the course kind of wants to be there. Yeah. But the skills that you learn as a conductor and the background research that you have to do for every piece, I think it's as useful whatever it is you do, even if conducting isn't what you go into in the end.
You work in a lot of detail, don't you?
Yeah, but each of those classes, we start with a conversation.
Yeah.
When was this written? What was happening in the world around? What's happening in other spheres other than music? It builds up a picture, and I think that really helps.
That's one of the biggest things that stayed with me from Guildhall, actually, even in all my art song work as well. Do you like art song?
Absolutely.
You do? Oh, what do you like?
They put me on the spot, why don't you? I think it's storytelling in miniature. So whether you're talking about Schubert's song or Richard Strauss or whatever it might be, you are considering a poem.
Yeah.
And you're finding its resonances, you're finding ways to basically take a word and depict it in music. And that's what we do on all kinds of musical work, isn't it? It's not, that's not restricted to song, but that fine detail and the idea that nothing counts unless it's been considered is a really good principle. And I suppose working in the theatre, conducting opera and so on, that's at the heart of my approach. Why did the composer make this decision? And I think because I conduct a lot of new music, you're looking at some decisions sort of very fresh as to why a composer has set words in a certain way. Though that approach, those principles can be applied to all manner.
Thinking about all of that, how does conducting an opera actually differ to conducting a symphony?
There's an overt story.
Yeah.
I think that is the main difference. There's text to guide you. You've already had a lot of decisions made for you. Yeah. So depending on how far back you go, looking at the libretto for sure, but maybe the source material before that, you understand about the characters, why they behave as they do, how they interact, and then you see how the composer has set that, either setting the words or creating orchestral music that also tells the story.
Yeah.
So in many respects, conducting opera is more straightforward because you don't have to work it all out for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it has plenty of challenges, but for me, I love that collaborative field. Collaboration in the room, yes, but also as part of the process.
What do you do when you start working with a new director then when you're doing an opera? Because obviously you don't have that in a symphony. So how does that collaboration kind of start and work for you?
It's really interesting. You would imagine that this is some kind of integrated process where everybody plans to work together, but very rarely.
Yeah,
and funnily enough, the conductor is very often booked last.
Oh, really?
The director first, then the cast, and then, we've got to have someone to conduct this.
Oh,
Not always, but very often that is the case. So in the theatre, the director is the most important person.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. There's a little subtle code on rehearsal schedules that all through all of the productions, the director's initials are first. And only at the stage and orchestra do the conductor's initials go first. And so they're swapped around. A very subtle way of showing who's in charge.
Yeah.
The director has got to put this show on its feet. The director has been thinking about this for months, if not years, about how are they going to set this story so it's understandable by an audience today.
Yeah.
And as a conductor, it's your job to basically get on side. You don't have to agree with every decision, but discovering why those decisions were made is fascinating. And I learned so much. I mean, generally speaking, the detail that a director has gone into in advance of the first rehearsal is, it's extraordinary. And yes, of course we learn the scores, but we're looking in a very different way. So actually, I have learnt so much over the years from working with directors and their approach, and I hope it's informed how I deal with other kinds of music as well.
But when you're working with a repetiteur, what do you think makes a good repetiteur?
I don't know if you remember this from conducting class, but I'm a big believer that when you're conducting something with a piano, it's not a piano. It's an orchestra through the voice of a piano.
Yeah.
The best repetiteurs know the orchestral score and they conjure that sound.
Okay.
And it's a miracle how it works. I mean, really.
Yeah.
But a piano reduction is the beginning. That's the thing that makes it fall under your fingers.
Yeah.
But actually what it is that you're trying to do with those sounds, that comes from your knowledge of the score. And as you know, that process in the rehearsal room, very often you're scrutinising the differences between what's in your piano reduction and what's in the full score to work out what's missing or what can be missed out. Yeah. Obviously, you've got to have an understanding and sympathy for how singers work and what they need.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not the same as being a collaborative pianist and accompanist doing song recitals where you turn every corner with the singer and there is a joy and a satisfaction in just being able to do anything that is required of you. If you do that in a rehearsal room, it's actually a disservice to the singers, because once the orchestra's there, they lose that kind of reassurance. It's experience, isn't it? It's knowledge of the score. It's second guessing what the singer will hear from the pit.
Right.
I'm going to play you these low notes now.
Yeah.
They're in the double basses, so that it won't be quite as clear as it will be with the left hand on my piano, but this is the note that you're going to hear.
Yeah.
There's a typical conversation.
Yeah.
Or watch out for this little motif here. You need to be together with that.
Right.
As we know, as soon as a singer starts singing, they can't hear what's around them.
Yeah.
They need guidance on that one. So they want to know what happens just beforehand. So a good repetiteur is all about that setup, all about that preparation. And of course, also following the conductor. Because from the conductor's point of view, those 4, 5, 6 weeks in piano rehearsals, that's the chance to get it in your body. And you want to feel that you're conducting in a way that will just effortlessly transition to standing in front of the orchestra. I don't know if you've had this experience, but very often one's had rehearsals in the rehearsal space with a piano and everything feels fine and wonderful and easy and chamber music like, and you get into the pit and you add the orchestra and oh my goodness, is something seriously tricky to overcome there.
So much of my work is with singers in a load of genres, but so much of it is with classical singers. And when I'm repping, obviously, as we said, you've got to be really rhythmic, you've got to sound like the orchestra. It is very, very different from art song. When you're working with singers, how do you deal with things such as pacing and flexibility for them? Because obviously you've got the whole orchestra to look after as well. I
think that's what the production rehearsals are for. And I enjoy that process. I like the idea that you're embedded in a team for quite a long time, getting to know one another. So the singers are learning to trust you as the conductor. Yeah. And you are learning to trust them. Also what to expect. You're sensing how somebody produces their sound, how they breathe. You're thinking about how they move across the stage. If they need to get from downstage left all the way to downstage right while singing, then your tempo is...
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. So you have to maybe adjust your tempo for that? Or not necessarily? Or?
Well, you need to set up the scene so that something like that works. Or if the tempo has to be in a certain way, then you have a conversation that says, I think it might be tricky, because actually they really perhaps ought to be at that spot by this beat, because so it's always about working back. By the time the audience sees it, hopefully that looks totally organic. But the number of times you have to repeat those things. So the question was how to work with singers, and as with everything, it's about listening. And it's about understanding why. Why do people approach things in a certain way? Has this artist sung this role many times before? Are they bringing a great deal of experience that I could really benefit from? You know, if they've done 7 productions of something, or 17, and have all of those performances under their belt, then they know so many pitfalls to be avoided. Conversely, if it's a new piece and you're giving it for the very first time, then you're creating that together, maybe with the composer in the room as well. In which case, it's a more open conversation about how to solve some of these problems. But eventually, it's about collaboration, it's about listening, and it's about understanding that we're all trying to get to the same goal. We just have to understand how each other gets there.
How do you navigate then if you've got a singer who's so used to doing a role? how can you get them to maybe have more flexibility in their approach?
It's the same as when you're working with an orchestra that's played a piece 100 times more than you've conducted it.
Right.
Well, you have to challenge yourself as to why you're asking for something to be different.
Yeah.
And if it's a good reason and you can explain why, and it's possible, then people will go with you.
Right.
But if you're asking for something that somebody else, through bitter experience, has found is not possible, then we're all learning from each other. As artists, we're all there to be open, to be flexible, but there are reasons why things work at certain tempi for certain people.
Yeah.
And it's counterproductive to try and get in the way of that.
Yeah.
I think what you can do is challenge convention. So just because something has always been done like that doesn't mean it has to be. But very often there's a reason that people take time at a certain phrase. There's a reason why something is ornamented in that way. And not to do it is actually detrimental. Yeah.
Thoughts? Because I asked Stephen Devine his thoughts on Recit. What do you think about Recit? Should it be very in tempo or have more flexibility? It's like very controversial. Just out of interest, what do you think?
My approach is to take away the music.
Yeah.
And to speak the text.
Yeah.
And can we understand it?
Yeah.
I had a really entertaining time, nothing to do with Recit, but I did Bohème in Italy last season and was Act 1, Scene 1, and I got the boys just to speak the text. And they were all Italian. It was quick fire. It was fantastic. It was honestly like watching a sitcom. They were so fast and so funny.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And then you want that paciness and that wit with the music supporting it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my approach to Recit, really. Would I want to hear it without some chords underneath?
Yeah.
So convention is that recitative, secco recit, is notated in 4/4, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there has to be some flexibility within that. And there's got to be room for wit, for pathos, for those actually sort of gulp moments. I'm saying that I will be flexible about it. But also, as the conductor, if it's secco recit, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very rarely played from the keyboard for that. I don't, to be honest, I don't do that much opera which has recitative. So accompanied recit, now there's a different one.
Yeah.
Accompanied recit, there's definitely flexibility in that, especially in the fact that things are not notated as they need to be. Mozart, Rossini, there are conventions there that have, for a very good reason, happened, but it's not written down. Now that you have to do your study.
Oh.
So if you were to just do exactly what it said on the page, people go, well, why isn't that suddenly going faster?
Yeah.
But what you have to do is ask yourself, well, what's the energy of the music? What's the compulsion of the character to speak as they are?
Yeah.
And from that, you understand what the tempo might be. So, yeah, I think give and take on all of those things. But the same thing goes when you're singing over the orchestra as well. I think you need a little bit of flex.
Well, actually, just going back to what you said, because something I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned trust. And I was really interested to know how you build trust with a new orchestra or with a new opera company.
I had a very entertaining conversation with an orchestra player at an opera house recently.
Okay.
And she said, yeah, you took the first 5 minutes of the rehearsal and we decided you can stay. That's honestly what it's like.
Oh, love that.
An orchestra, actually 5 minutes is far too long. The orchestra will have decided from your upbeat whether they're going to endure this or enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, look, experience is honestly the best thing. You start to learn what an organisation needs, what you're there to provide. It's never about you. It's always about the production, the concert, the product, the audience. You're a facilitator. And so, anyway, that's my approach. How do you build trust with an orchestra? You show that you can hear what it is that they're doing, that you respect everything that is good about it, and you challenge the things that you think can be improved. If you don't pick up on things that the orchestra know aren't right, they will lose respect for you. It's no good just being friendly. You're there to do a job. And the job is to allow everybody to do their very best
100%.
Possible work. And so with singers, I mean, it's a similar approach really, but they want to know whether you're actually listening to them. A singer has to turn up on day one knowing their role from memory, and they need to be able to put it on stage. So you as a conductor need to be able to engage with that. And if you can't, the singer will look at you thinking, well, I've done my job. Have you done yours?
100.
I'm not being negative about all of this. That is the reality. It's on you to know your stuff. Nobody wants to make a fool of.
No, that's right, because in an equal measure, you don't want that to happen to you. I think for singers, one thing that often gets underestimated with singers is it's probably, I think, the most vulnerable instrument, because you really are just getting up and bearing yourself as a person. So that can feel a lot more frightening, I think, sometimes, than at least being with an instrument. And if you're having an off day or you're ill or something, then that can be seriously quite daunting, I think, for singers. So I think you're absolutely right to say that.
Every other musician expresses themselves through a piece of wood or metal, basically. And there is a protective element. You've got a violin that separates you from the orchestra. You've got a flute, you've got a piano, whatever it is. As a singer, it's like, this is me. Here I am.
Exactly.
I'm expressing myself to you.
It's tough.
Now, experience allows you to control the amount of yourself that you give, but you have to put yourself in a vulnerable place to be able to find your character. And there's also, as you say, there's the physiological nature of it's a bad day, the humidity's wrong, I'm tired, the chords aren't meeting.
Exactly.
And understanding from the perspective of the singer, as a conductor or as a repetiteur, I think is really important.
I completely agree. Did you have another point as well?
There was a second point, but it got lost in the edit.
When you have different singers, do you adapt your conducting style or not?
What kind of style?
I don't know, like your style.
I actually think I stay pretty consistent whoever I'm working with. And whether that is a group of young musicians or the most experienced high-level professionals, I think my approach is pretty similar.
So say you've been working on a role, I don't know, Don Ottavio. Say you're working with that and you've had a lighter tenor doing it, and then you're going to have someone who's a much heavier tenor doing that role. Would you feel you have to adapt to the voice? So would you change the tempi slightly or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, colour and production are key. Is it on the voice? Are you powering through? Do you need time to just move in the voice to find a particular note? You're trying to let somebody shine. If you push through at the same tempo, I mean, it's the same as when you're doing a piano concerto, for goodness sake. You know, you don't say, well, that's my tempo. If you can't play your scales, it's on you. No, for sure, I would definitely adjust tempi. And with that, probably palette and, you know, what it is. I mean, that's the exciting thing, isn't it? If you work with a really young artist whose voice isn't absolutely in full volume, for example, you're not going to say, well, the orchestra plays at this level, live with it.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to balance. And by balancing, you're just taking some weight out of the sound, which means the whole approach is going to be, so it might even look different when I'm conducting. So yes, in that respect, flexibility is everything.
Even with a more modern score where they're a bit more, so for example Britain, where it's, you know, very, I don't want to say rigid is the word, but it's maybe less flexible on the tempo. I mean, what do you do about stuff like that?
Well, I think everything is flexible.
Do you know what I mean, though?
I do know what you mean. You can't ebb and flow within a phrase in the same way.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I would do that in anything. I wouldn't just slow down in a moment because of something. We'd look at the overall picture and say, okay, all right, in order to be able to do all of these things, how do we find a speed and a mood that is useful for everybody? Britain is the supreme setter of words, and therefore the answer is all there. So how does the text relate to the accompaniment? How is the text set in the tessitura? How does a particular singer approach the challenges of a particular role? And again, I suppose that's colour. it's not all about tempo. It's about facilitating somebody to turn a corner that they might find tricky by changing one of the other parameters, I suppose. I love conducting Britain. I don't think I've ever found a problem with that. I mean, there are technical challenges, but there are in everything. And I mean, Britain is obviously absolutely core repertoire. When you approach a role with the knowledge that 100 or 1,000 people have done it before, you find a way of solving the problem. When you encounter a brand new problem in new work, for example, part of that process is pushing against it, going, is this even possible? The answer is invariably yes. So how do you solve that problem? And drawing from each of these different musical experiences, I think, is a vital part of that process.
When you are approaching a symphony orchestra for the first time, score, how do you approach it? Let's say a classical piece that you haven't conducted before. How would you approach the score for the first time? What's all the work you put in before the rehearsal with the orchestra?
Okay, so have I heard of this piece before?
Let's have answer for both.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So if it's a piece of standard repertoire that I haven't conducted, chances are I know how it goes, I know the feel of it, or I've conducted something else by that composer. So immediately you're 17 steps ahead, aren't you, in your process, because you kind of know what to expect. Practical things, I've chosen the edition of this score, and I want it to be a physical score. I'm thinking about the orchestration. I actually read everything. You remember this from the conducting class. Like literally, first page. What does the preface say? What's the instrumentation? What's the date of copyright? What's the language that the composer uses? Is that the same that the publisher uses? All of this is part of this kind of low-grade approach. Something's bubbling away in the back of my mind. I need to get perspective. What did this feel like when it was first performed? How clean is it to look? Let's say it's a score by Beethoven or Mozart or something. It's a clean Bärenreiter score, really easy to read. And so actually I just flick through every page of the score, having it not in time at all, just like kind of looking, getting the feeling of this. Oh, that's the first movement, there's the second movement. How is the score divided physically? Starting to own the copy. Depending on whether I know the piece in advance, I'll listen to a recording. And it'll be, okay, this is an interesting approach. I listen to a recording by a great conductor and I think, my goodness me, how will I ever get here? And then I listen to a recording by a second conductor and I think, that's interesting, there's some different choices there. And by the third recording, I start to disagree. And at that point, I go, okay, I've got something to say here. Now, it doesn't need to be through the recording process, because the other side is I sit at the piano and I play it through. And not in time, again, I'm thinking about harmony, I'm thinking about instrumentation. I mean, if it's classical or romantic, I can happily sit at the desk and read that and it'll leap off the page. You know, that's nice to be able to do that. But then starts the hard work. Then it's the analysis. So I want to know about the structure and I want to know about the harmony. So I divide the structure into phrases, which, depending on the nature of the music and how varied they are, I might write a number at the top of the line, which say there's an 8. This is an 8-bar phrase, 6-bar phrase. And what I'm looking for are breaks in the pattern. So most music is in multiples of 2 when it comes to phrase length. 4-bar phrase, 8-bar phrase. So if you've got lots of 8-bar phrases and then a 7-bar phrase, that's going to feel different. A 6-bar phrase has a different vibe. And the way that I notate that on the score is designed to appeal to somewhere in my subconscious. So that the act of marking the score is an aid to learning. The actual act of putting a pencil on the page and deciding to make that mark, something has gone in my mind. That's the structure of it. That takes a reasonable amount of time. It's a satisfying process. Then I'm looking at harmony. So I'm analysing the chords. So where does this piece move? We start in the tonic. Where does it move next? For how long? Why? What's the way we get there? So I use lots of ways of notating that. If it's obvious, I don't write anything at all. I might use Roman numerals, it's called 1, it's called 5. Sometimes I might use figured bass abbreviations, so it's a 6/4 chord. Sometimes I might use guitar chords. I've spent many years playing jazz bass and keyboards and stuff, so I think in guitar chords like that. So I might write C over B flat or something. It means something to me. I know some of my colleagues will go, you do what?
No, I do
what?
that.
I know, but each to their own.
Yeah, exactly.
The point is the process. How you get there doesn't matter, and you can change your mind, and you can notice that you've forgotten things or omitted things. So that. Then, and only then, do I start to think about who's playing. When I say, I've been thinking about it all along, but I won't mark anything in until I've got the structure and the harmony sorted. And then I might just bracket some of the instruments. I must have 6 scores of Shostakovich 5, as in my 20s, I did that so many times and found different ways of writing down what it is I need to know. And now when I do it, I don't have anything in there. It's just
that part of your body
exactly. But it's a necessary part of the process. And what I find interesting now is if I take a score off the shelf, something I learned thoroughly in my 20s, everything is in there. I remember doing Dvorak 6 for the first time in about 20 years, and I took it off the shelf. I go, know how this goes. It's absolutely extraordinary. But it's about that process. That is why you dedicate the time to it. And I find it interesting at this stage that I've done a great deal of the standard repertoire and even more of the non-standard repertoire. And so I don't come across standard rep that I haven't done very often or that I'm asked to do. So that's a classical piece. And if it's a contemporary piece, then I don't mark in the phrase structure so much because there's time signature changes. Written music is a way of notating what's in somebody's mind. But just as the script to a play requires interpretation and flexibility and humanising, so it is with music. Now, a score is a complicated thing because there's a lot going on. But my approach, certainly when teaching, but this is my personal approach, is what does it sound like to the audience? What do they want to experience at this time? And everything else is sort of irrelevant. So nobody cares how it's marked up. Nobody really minds what you're doing with your hands. The point is, are you conveying to the audience what you believe the composer is trying to say? There's a lot of talk about how challenging it is to have a career in the arts, in music, in classical music, in opera at the moment. So my question to you is, why do you do it? Why do you need to do it? What is it about this that you couldn't live without?
I have had such a funny journey in classical music because I didn't even think about doing it until I was 17. I just had local piano lessons. I did my grade 8, but I did it on not ABRSM. I did it on a different board and I did it all by ear. I just didn't really care about reading music or doing it. Really wanted to be an actor. So that's why I like working with singers. But then a concert pianist came to the school in a masterclass. It was just a one-off thing, and he heard me play and he offered me a full scholarship for lessons, and that's when I was like, oh, can you do this as a job? And he said, yeah, you can. You could definitely do it as a job. And I was like, wow, okay. But really, up until, to be honest, my masters, I could kind of feel like I could take it or leave it in a way. And then I thought I might have arthritis in my hands, went to the doctor, got tested. That's when I realised if I wasn't doing classical music or piano, I honestly don't know what I would be doing with my life. I would just die inside. Because what I've realised is it's so timeless and relatable to everyone, and I think there's a couple of issues at the moment that we all basically need to overcome in classical music, including the use of social media and being more open to marketing ourselves. Because I come from a state school background and it's very different compared to all the very lucky people who go to private school and stuff. And I haven't got a chip on my shoulder about it, but I think we definitely need to open it up a lot more to people in state schools.
I feel so strongly about this. I went to a state school. I had peripatetic music lessons at school. I had private lessons as well. But every opportunity was available to me because the country decided, the state had decided it was a worthwhile investment. I and my colleagues of my generation are still in this profession because the Gulbenkian Foundation had a couple of reports in the late 60s, early 70s that said you should have peripatetic music lessons in school and you should form youth orchestras. And so this country had this wealth of absolutely fantastic music making opportunities for young people. And that has been chipped away at to a dangerous extent.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is your journey was through a state school. Well, so was mine.
Yeah.
And I think probably both of our concerns is that those opportunities remain open to everybody in the future.
Exactly.
And that's we're all concerned about at the moment, and doing our very best to counter, because, well, I think as we both know, there's nothing else we want to do or frankly could or should do.
No.
Telling your story through music, reflecting the world around you through this art form is something people have done forever.
Yeah.
And therefore must and will continue, but we don't want to restrict the possibilities.
No, and I think it's something that has always been loyal and faithful to me throughout my whole life. Nothing has failed me within music, and now I feel I need to be loyal back to music. It's been good to me and I need to be good to it as well as an art form. But I love it, and I'm a creative person, I think, through and through. And I think not doing piano and classical music, I don't even want to think about it.
Here's the thing. Today, more people hear classical music than ever before in all human history.
Oh.
The orchestra and the piano are backdrops to our everyday life.
Yeah.
What is the most streamed form of classical music? It's contemplative piano music.
Right.
What is the soundscape of so many video games, movies, TV series? It's the sound of an orchestra. It's classical music, or that idiom.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that when so many people listen to this every single day of their lives, that it's under threat as a way of building a career. But I'm hopeful, I'm positive, and it sounds like you are.
I think so. I think hopefully stuff like this is the way to get stuff out there and make it relatable. And
You heard it here first.
well, I've got just one little question to finish. What is your favourite brand of chocolate bar? This always gets everyone. Everyone's always got an answer for everything, and then suddenly this one, they're like,
I'm a big fan of Tony Chocolonely.
are you? With the salted caramel one? Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's kind of new, that one, isn't it? Yeah.
Relatively. I would say one of the fun things about travelling is discovering which chocolate bars are popular in which countries. And I have to say, working in Belgium was not a terrible experience, where there's a chocolate shop on every single corner.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh my god, how funny. Thank you very much.
Thank you.